For generations, the Star Alliance had basked in the glow of technological superiority and cultural sophistication. Their member civilizations had long abandoned the ways of war, instead relying on diplomatic acumen to resolve any disputes that arose between them. This era of peace and prosperity, however, was about to be shaken to its core. At the heart of the Star Alliance sat the grand capital world of Ethera, a shimmering ecumenopolis whose glittering spires and pristine landscapes bore witness to the Alliance's pinnacle of achievement. It was here, in the hallowed halls of the Alliance Council, that the most pressing matters of the galactic community were deliberated and decided. On this particular day, the council chamber was bustling with activity as the representatives of the Alliance's member races convened for their biannual summit. The air was thick with a sense of urgency, for the council had been summoned to address a matter of grave importance. Presiding over the proceedings was Councillor Vex, a venerable Etherian statesman whose reputation for level-headed diplomacy was rivaled only by his keen intellect. With a measured tone, he called the chamber to order, his gaze sweeping across the gathered delegates. "Esteemed members of the Alliance," he began, "we find ourselves at a critical juncture in the history of our great civilizations. Recent events have brought to light a development that demands our utmost attention and consideration." The councillor paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle upon the chamber. "It is with no small measure of concern that I report the discovery of a previously unknown sentient species, one that has evaded our detection for centuries." A murmur of surprise and unease rippled through the assembly. Councillor Vex raised a hand, silencing the chatter. "This species, which we have designated as humans, hails from a small, resource-rich planet on the fringes of our explored territories. Our initial observations have revealed a civilization that is, by all accounts, technologically and culturally primitive in comparison to our own." The councillor paused, his brow furrowing slightly. "And yet there is something about these humans that has unsettled our analysts, something that has shaken the very foundations upon which we have built our enduring peace." Turning to the large holographic display that dominated the chamber's far wall, Councillor Vex gestured, and the image shifted to reveal a series of tactical simulations. "Our researchers have been studying the humans' approach to conflict resolution, and the results have been troubling, to say the least." The simulations depicted scenes of brutal combat, with the humans employing a wide array of advanced weaponry and employing cunning strategic maneuvers. The Alliance delegates watched in stunned silence as their pacifist ideals were challenged by the sheer ferocity of the humans' martial prowess. "As you can see," Councillor Vex continued, "the humans possess a proclivity for violence and aggression that is wholly foreign to our own cultural norms. Their technological capabilities in the field of warfare are in many ways superior to our own." The councillor paused, allowing the gravity of his words to sink in. "Gentlemen, the implications of this discovery are vast and far-reaching. For the first time in our history, the Star Alliance faces the possibility of a threat that cannot be resolved through diplomatic means alone." A heavy silence settled over the chamber, broken only by the occasional murmur of concern. Councillor Vex waited patiently, knowing that the decision that lay ahead would shape the course of the Alliance for generations to come. Finally, a voice cut through the hush, its owner rising from his seat. It was Councillor Orcs, a renowned strategist and former military commander. "Councillor Vex," he said, his tone measured but firm, "you have presented us with a most unsettling revelation. The existence of this human species and their apparent martial capabilities pose a clear and present danger to the stability of the Star Alliance." Orcs paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. "It is my considered opinion that we must act swiftly and decisively to neutralize this threat before it has a chance to fester and grow. The peace and prosperity we have enjoyed for so long hangs in the balance." The councillor's words were met with a smattering of murmured agreements, but Vex raised a hand, silencing the chamber once more. "I understand your concerns, Councillor Orcs," he said, "and they are not without merit. However, I would caution against hasty action. The humans, for all their apparent belligerence, may also hold the key to unlocking new frontiers of knowledge and understanding. Vex paused, his gaze hardening. Are we so certain of our own superiority that we would dismiss this opportunity out of hand? I believe that, with the proper approach, we may be able to integrate the humans into the Star Alliance, harnessing their martial prowess for the greater good of our galactic community. The chamber erupted into a flurry of debate, the delegates passionately arguing the merits of Vex's proposal against Orcs's calls for immediate action. As the discussion raged on, the fate of the Star Alliance hung in the balance, a future clouded by uncertainty and the looming shadow of a newly discovered species. The sleek, silver-hulled survey vessel glided silently through the inky blackness of space, its crew on high alert as they approached the uncharted coordinates. For weeks, the Etherian science team had meticulously pored over sensor readings and astrographical data, piecing together a tantalizing picture of a previously undiscovered planetary system. Now, as the ship's advanced scanners swept across the alien worlds, the crew held their collective breath, anticipating the moment of first contact. "Captain, we're detecting signs of a breathable atmosphere and clear indications of a thriving biosphere on the third planet," reported the lead science officer, her eyes alight with excitement. "Preliminary scans suggest the presence of a sentient species." The seasoned Etherian captain nodded, his weathered features betraying a glimmer of curiosity. "Bring us in for a closer look, but maintain a safe distance. We'll want to observe before making any overt contact." As the survey vessel glided closer to the lush, blue-green world, the bridge crew leaned forward in rapt attention. Stretched out before them was a sprawling tapestry of landmasses, oceans, and swirling cloud formations, a living, breathing world teeming with the mysteries of the unknown. "Fascinating," murmured the captain, his keen eyes scanning the rapidly incoming data. "The atmospheric composition is remarkably similar to our own. And the distribution of land and water. It's almost as if this planet was tailored for habitation." The science officer nodded, her fingers dancing across her console. "That's not all, sir. The level of technological development on the surface is, well, it's quite remarkable, considering this is a pre-FTL civilization." A faint crease appeared on the captain's brow. "Elaborate, if you will." "Our sensors are detecting all manner of advanced infrastructure, cities, transportation networks, communication grids, and their power generation capabilities are far more sophisticated than we would have expected." The officer paused, her expression a mix of wonder and trepidation. "Captain, these humans, as we've designated them, appear to be a highly intelligent and resourceful species. Their level of technological prowess is centuries, perhaps even millennia, ahead of what our initial projections had suggested." The captain absorbed this information, his gaze fixed on the vibrant world below. "And their sociopolitical structure? Have we been able to discern anything about their cultural and governmental systems?" "That's where things become interesting, sir," the officer replied, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "The humans seem to have organized themselves into a multitude of competing nation-states, each with their own unique customs, ideologies, and power structures. Their interactions with one another are marked by a remarkable degree of conflict and strife." The captain arched a brow. "Conflict and strife, you say? Elaborate, if you will." The officer's fingers flew across her console, summoning a series of holographic displays. "Our observations have revealed that the humans have a penchant for engaging in large-scale acts of violence against one another. They employ a wide array of advanced weaponry, from projectile-based firearms to powerful explosive devices. Their military tactics demonstrate a level of strategic sophistication that is," she paused, searching for the right words, "unsettling, to say the least." The captain nodded, his expression grave. "So, in essence, you're telling me that this species, despite its evident technological prowess, is also deeply embroiled in a state of near-constant warfare." "That appears to be the case, sir," the officer confirmed, her gaze downcast. The humans' propensity for aggression and conflict is most troubling. The captain fell silent, his mind racing as he contemplated the implications of this discovery. The existence of a technologically advanced species mired in such destructive tendencies was a stark departure from the pacifist ideals that had long defined the Star Alliance. After a long moment, the captain straightened, his features resolute. "Maintain our current position and continue covert observation. I will summon the council for an emergency meeting to discuss this matter. We must determine the appropriate course of action, lest this human civilization pose a threat to the stability of the Alliance." The officer nodded, her expression mirroring the captain's grave concern. "Aye, sir. I'll begin compiling a detailed report for the council's review." As the survey vessel hovered in the void, its sensors trained upon the distant world, the crew could not shake the growing sense of unease that had settled over the bridge. The humans, it seemed, were a paradox, a species of remarkable ingenuity and potential, yet also one seemingly consumed by the very forces of conflict and destruction that the Star Alliance had sought to transcend. The fate of this newfound civilization, and indeed the future of the Alliance itself, hung in the balance. In the wake of the Star Alliance's first contact with the humans, the esteemed council convened in the grand chambers of Utheret to deliberate on the appropriate course of action. Councillor Vex, his features etched with a rare expression of concern, stood before the assembled delegates, the holographic displays at his back painting a troubling picture of the newly discovered civilization. "Esteemed members of the council," he began, his voice measured and grave, "the findings from our initial observation of the human species have been deeply unsettling." The councillor gestured to the displays, which now depicted scenes of human warfare. Gleaming metal warships exchanging devastating salvos, armies clashing in brutal close combat, cities reduced to smoldering ruins. "As you can see," Vex continued, "the humans have an innate proclivity for violence and aggression that is wholly foreign to our own cultural norms. Their technological capabilities in the field of warfare are, in many cases, on par with or even exceeding our own." A murmur of alarm rippled through the chamber, and Councillor Orcs, the former military commander, rose to his feet, his expression severe. "This is an unacceptable threat to the stability and security of the Star Alliance," he declared, his voice thundering through the hall. "We cannot simply stand idly by and allow these humans to jeopardize the peace we have worked so hard to maintain." Vex raised a placating hand. "I understand your concerns, Counselor, but I would caution against hasty action. We must first endeavor to understand the humans and their motivations before we consider any drastic measures." Orcs scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "Understand them? What is there to understand? They are a species consumed by conflict and destruction, a clear and present danger to our way of life." The councillor shook his head, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. "That may be true, but we cannot dismiss the potential value they may hold. Their technological prowess, their strategic acumen, even their martial spirit. These are qualities that, if properly harnessed, could prove invaluable to the Alliance." Councillor Zora, a renowned xenopsychologist, rose to her feet, her expression thoughtful. "Councillor Vex makes a valid point. We should not be too quick to judge the humans based on our own preconceptions. Their culture and societal norms may be vastly different from our own, and understanding those differences could be the key to integrating them into the Alliance." Orcs's brow furrowed in frustration. "You would have us welcome these savages into our midst. Counselor, the risks far outweigh any potential benefits." Vex raised a hand, silencing the growing murmurs of dissent. "I understand your concerns, Counselor Orcs, but I believe we are overlooking a crucial aspect of this discovery." All eyes turned to the elder counselor as he continued. "The humans, for all their apparent belligerence, have managed to achieve a remarkable level of technological sophistication without the benefit of interstellar travel or the wisdom of the Alliance. Imagine what they could accomplish if we were to share our knowledge and resources with them." Orcs opened his mouth to protest, but Vex raised a hand, forestalling him. Think of it, counselors. A species with such an innate aptitude for innovation and strategic thinking. If we could harness those qualities, the possibilities are endless. They could revolutionize our approaches to everything from interstellar exploration to planetary defense. The chamber fell silent as the counselors considered Vex's words, their expressions a mix of contemplation and unease. Finally, Zora spoke, her voice tinged with cautious optimism. Counselor Vex makes a compelling argument. If we approach this matter with prudence and an open mind, we may be able to find a way to integrate the humans into the alliance without compromising our core principles. Arux's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, Vex raised a hand, drawing the attention of the assembly. It is clear that we are faced with a momentous decision, one that will shape the future of the Star Alliance for generations to come. I propose that we establish a dedicated task force to study the humans in greater depth, to understand their culture, their motivations, and their potential, both as allies and as adversaries. The elder counselor's gaze swept across the chamber, his expression resolute. Only then can we determine the appropriate course of action, be it integration or neutralization. The stability of our galactic community hangs in the balance, and we cannot afford to act hastily or without due consideration. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly, and even Orcs, though clearly still unconvinced, nodded grudgingly. Vex allowed himself a small, satisfied smile, knowing that the die had been cast. The fate of the humans, and indeed the Star Alliance itself, would now be decided through careful observation and deliberation. As the counselors filed out of the chamber, the weight of their decision hung heavy in the air, a harbinger of the profound changes that were to come. In the weeks following the Star Alliance Council's decision to establish a dedicated task force to study the newly discovered human civilization, the survey vessel and its crew remained in orbit above the blue-green world, their sensors trained upon the activities unfolding below. Under the careful guidance of Counselor Zora, the task force was assembled, its members handpicked from among the Alliance's foremost experts in xenopsychology, military strategy, and technological innovation. Their mission was clear: to delve deeper into the mysteries of the human species, to uncover the true nature of their violent tendencies and the extent of their martial capabilities. As the observation period progressed, the task force's findings painted an increasingly troubling picture. The humans, it seemed, were a species consumed by an endless cycle of conflict and warfare, their history marked by countless bloody campaigns and devastating acts of aggression. Their technological advancements in the field of military hardware are nothing short of astounding, reported one of the task force's lead analysts, her brow furrowed in a mix of awe and trepidation. Guided projectile weapons, explosive ordnance, armored vehicles, the humans have developed an incredible array of tools designed specifically for the purpose of destroying one another. The analyst paused, her gaze fixed upon the holographic displays that filled the task force's command center. And their strategic prowess is equally impressive. Their ability to coordinate complex military operations, to anticipate and counter each other's maneuvers, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered. Counselor Zora, her expression grave, nodded slowly. The reports we've received so far are indeed deeply unsettling. These humans seem to possess an innate, almost primal, drive towards violence and conquest that is wholly foreign to the cultural norms of the Star Alliance. She turned to the assembled task force, her eyes sweeping across the faces of the various experts. But I must reiterate the importance of understanding their motivations, their societal structures, and the underlying factors that have shaped their civilization. We cannot simply dismiss them as savages, no matter how tempting that may be. Counselor Orcs, his features set in a deep frown, spoke up, his voice laced with barely concealed contempt. Counselor Zora, with all due respect, I fail to see the value in delving any deeper into the affairs of this human species. Their proclivities for violence and aggression are clear, and they pose a grave threat to the stability and security of the Star Alliance. The former military commander turned to face the holographic displays, his gaze hardening. Look at these images: cities reduced to rubble, entire populations annihilated. Do we really need to understand the motivations behind such wanton destruction? Zora held up a placating hand. I understand your concerns, Counselor Orcs, but I must insist that we cannot afford to act rashly. The humans, for all their brutality, possess an undeniable level of technological sophistication. If we were to harness their capabilities for the greater good of the Alliance. Orcs scoffed, cutting her off. Harness their capabilities. Counselor, you speak as if we should welcome these savages into our fold, as if we should trust them with the secrets of our civilization. He shook his head, his expression darkening. No, the only course of action is to eliminate this threat before it has a chance to fester and spread. We must act swiftly and decisively to neutralize the humans, lest they bring about the downfall of the Star Alliance. The chamber descended into a heated debate, the various task force members arguing passionately for and against Orcs' proposal. Counselor Zora, her brow furrowed in deep thought, held up a hand, silencing the room. Gentlemen, I believe we are overlooking a critical factor in this equation. She turned to face the holographic displays, her gaze fixing upon the images of the human cities and military forces. What if the key to understanding, and perhaps even harnessing, the humans' martial prowess lies not in their capacity for destruction, but in their capacity for innovation? Orcs opened his mouth to protest, but Zora raised a hand, forestalling him. Think about it. These humans have achieved a level of technological advancement that, in many ways, rivals our own. And they have done so without the benefit of millennia of accumulated knowledge and resources that we in the Star Alliance have enjoyed. The xenopsychologist's eyes gleamed with a newfound determination. Perhaps if we approach them with an open mind and a willingness to learn, we may discover the secrets to their success, secrets that could revolutionize our own approaches to defense, exploration, and even societal organization. Orcs' expression darkened, but before he could speak, Counselor Vex, who had been silent throughout the exchange, stepped forward, his voice measured and calm. Counselor Zora makes a compelling argument. I believe that rather than rushing to judgment or action, we should instead focus our efforts on establishing contact with the humans and studying them in greater depth. The elder counselor turned to face the assembled task force, his gaze sweeping across their faces. Only then can we truly determine the appropriate course of action, whether it be integration or neutralization. The future of the Star Alliance hangs in the balance, and we cannot afford to act rashly or without due consideration. As the task force members exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the decision they faced settled heavily upon their shoulders. For the first time in the history of the Alliance, they found themselves confronted with a civilization that threatened to upend the very foundations upon which their society had been built. The fate of the humans, and perhaps the fate of the Star Alliance itself, now rested in their hands. The Star Alliance's task force on the human civilization convened once more, the tension palpable in the air as the members debated the appropriate course of action. On one side stood Counselor Orcs, his stance unwavering in his call for the humans' outright neutralization. On the other, Counselors Vex and Zora advocated for a more cautious diplomatic approach, arguing that the humans' potential could be harnessed for the greater good of the Alliance. Orcs' brow was furrowed in a deep scowl as he addressed the assembled experts. Gentlemen, we have spent countless hours studying these humans, poring over their history of violence and destruction. And what have we learned? That they are a species consumed by an insatiable lust for war, a civilization teetering on the edge of self-annihilation. He turned to face the holographic displays, which showed the human cities reduced to rubble, their populations decimated by the ravages of conflict. Look at the evidence before us. Whole societies laid waste, countless lives lost. Do we really need any more convincing that these humans pose an existential threat to the stability and security of the Star Alliance? Orcs's gaze swept across the room, his voice rising with conviction. I say we cannot afford to take any chances. The time for observation and deliberation has passed. We must act decisively to eliminate this threat before it has a chance to spread and infect the very fabric of our galactic community. Counselor Zora, her expression pensive, rose to her feet, her voice calm but resolute. Counselor Orcs, I understand your concerns, but I must respectfully disagree with your proposed course of action. While the human's propensity for violence is indeed deeply troubling, I believe we are overlooking a critical aspect of this discovery. She gestured towards the holographic displays, her gaze fixing upon the images of the human's technological advancements. These humans, for all their flaws, have managed to achieve a remarkable level of scientific and engineering prowess. Their mastery of advanced weaponry, their strategic acumen, and their resourcefulness in the face of conflict. These are qualities that, if properly harnessed, could prove invaluable to the Alliance. Orcs scoffed, his eyes narrowing. Harnessed. Counselor Zora, you speak as if we should welcome these savages into our fold, as if we should entrust them with the secrets of our civilization. Zora held up a placating hand. I am not suggesting we simply open our doors and allow the humans unfettered access to our knowledge and resources. However, I believe that with a carefully considered approach, we may be able to integrate them into the Alliance in a way that benefits both our civilizations. Counselor Vex, who had been silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke up, his voice low and measured. Counselor Zora makes a valid point. The humans, for all their flaws, possess a level of innovation and adaptability that we in the Star Alliance have not witnessed in millennia. If we were to engage with them, share our knowledge and resources, we may be able to unlock new frontiers of discovery and progress. Orcs's expression darkened, but Vex raised a hand, forestalling his protest. I understand the risks inherent in such an endeavor, Counselor Orcs. The human's propensity for violence and destruction is a deep-rooted concern that we cannot ignore. However, I believe that if we approach this matter with prudence and a steadfast commitment to our principles, we may be able to forge a path forward that benefits both our civilizations. The chamber fell silent as the task force members contemplated the counselor's words, the weight of the decision they faced palpable in the air. Finally, one of the lead analysts, a respected xenobiologist, cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the room. Counselors, if I may, he began, his voice tinged with uncertainty. While I share Counselor Orcs's concerns regarding the human's violent tendencies, I believe that Counselor Zora and Counselor Vex have raised a valid point. The technological and strategic innovations displayed by this species are truly remarkable, and I believe that if we were to establish a controlled, mutually beneficial exchange of knowledge and resources, the potential benefits to the Alliance could be immense. The analyst paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. Of course, the risks cannot be overstated. We would need to proceed with the utmost caution, perhaps even establishing a dedicated diplomatic corps to oversee the integration process. But if we are able to successfully harness the human's capabilities, the implications for our future could be profound. Orcs opened his mouth to object, but before he could speak, Vex raised a hand, silencing the room. It is clear that we are faced with a momentous decision, one that will shape the future of the Star Alliance for generations to come. I propose that we convene a special session of the Council, where we can present the findings of this task force and seek a consensus on the appropriate course of action. The elder counselor's gaze swept across the assembled experts, his expression resolute. The fate of our civilization, and perhaps the fate of the humans themselves, hangs in the balance. We cannot afford to act hastily or without due consideration. The time has come to determine, once and for all, whether the humans will be our salvation or our downfall. As the task force members filed out of the chamber, the weight of their decision loomed heavy in the air, a harbinger of the profound changes that were to come. The Grand Council chambers of Ethera were abuzz with activity as the representatives of the Star Alliance's member civilizations gathered for a momentous assembly. The fate of the newly discovered human species hung in the balance, and the decision they reached today would reverberate across the galaxy for generations to come. At the center of the chamber, Counselor Vex stood, his weathered features etched with a rare expression of gravity. He had convened this special session, determined to present the findings of the task force and advocate for a course of action that would secure the stability and prosperity of the Alliance. Esteemed colleagues, Vex began, his voice commanding the attention of the room. We find ourselves at a critical juncture in the history of our civilization. The discovery of the human species has presented us with both opportunities and challenges, the scope of which we are only now beginning to fully comprehend. The elderly counselor gestured towards the holographic displays that surrounded the chamber, images of the human cities, their military might, and their technological advancements flashing across the screens. As you can see, the humans possess a remarkable level of scientific and engineering prowess, attributes that, if properly harnessed, could prove invaluable to the continued growth and development of the Star Alliance. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly, but Vex raised a hand, silencing the chamber. However, we cannot ignore the humans' propensity for violence and aggression, a trait that is deeply at odds with the pacifist principles upon which our galactic community has been built. Counselor Orcs, his expression severe, rose to his feet, his voice cutting through the hush. Precisely, Counselor Vex. These humans pose an unacceptable risk to the stability and security of the Star Alliance. Their very existence threatens to unravel the delicate balance we have maintained for millennia. We must act swiftly and decisively to neutralize this threat before it has a chance to spread and infect our civilization. Vex nodded, acknowledging the validity of Orcs's concerns. I understand your position, Counselor, and it is not without merit. However, I would caution against hasty action. The humans, for all their flaws, represent a unique opportunity, an opportunity to expand the horizons of our knowledge and capabilities, to forge new bonds of understanding and cooperation. The elder counselor turned to face the assembly, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the gathered delegates. I propose that we extend an olive branch to the humans, offering them the chance to join the Star Alliance as equal partners in our endeavors. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of shocked murmurs and outright protests, but Vex raised a hand, silencing the din. I know. This is a radical proposal, one that challenges the very foundations of our civilization. But consider the potential benefits, the technological innovations we could unlock, the strategic advantages we could gain, the cultural exchange and growth we could experience. Counselor Zora, her expression thoughtful, rose to her feet, her voice calm and measured. Counselor Vex makes a compelling argument. While the risks inherent in such an undertaking cannot be ignored, the potential rewards are equally profound. If we were to integrate the humans into the Alliance, to share our knowledge and resources with them, we may be able to forge a new era of cooperation and mutual understanding that could strengthen the very fabric of our galactic community. Orcs scoffed, his eyes narrowing. Counselor Zora, you speak as if we should simply trust these savages with the secrets of our civilization. Have you forgotten the wanton destruction we have witnessed, the countless lives lost to their senseless conflicts? The former military commander's gaze hardened, and he jabbed an accusatory finger towards the holographic displays. These humans are a plague, a cancer that must be cut out before it has a chance to spread. I will not stand idly by and allow them to jeopardize the peace we have worked so hard to maintain. Vex raised a hand, silencing Orcs's tirade. I understand your concerns, Counselor, but I would remind you that the humans, for all their flaws, have managed to achieve a remarkable level of technological and scientific advancement without the benefit of our guidance and resources. The elder counselor's expression grew contemplative. Imagine what they could accomplish if we were to share our knowledge with them, to uplift them, and bring them into the fold of the Star Alliance. The possibilities are truly astounding. The chamber fell silent as the delegates contemplated Vex's words, their expressions a mix of trepidation and cautious optimism. Finally, one of the younger counselors, a rising star in the field of tenopolitics, spoke up, her voice tinged with a sense of determination. "Counselor Vex, Counselor Zora, I believe you both make valid points. The humans represent a grave risk to the stability of the Star Alliance, but they also present a unique opportunity for growth and innovation. I propose that we put this matter to a vote, and let the will of the Assembly guide us forward." Vex nodded, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Very well. Let us put the matter to a vote, and determine the fate of the humans, and indeed, the future of the Star Alliance itself." As the counselors prepared to cast their ballots, the weight of the decision they faced hung heavy in the air, a harbinger of the profound changes that were to come. The Star Alliance council chambers were shrouded in an uneasy silence as the delegates finished casting their votes on the matter of the humans. The ayes and nays had been tallied, the decision reached, and now the consequences of that choice loomed heavily over the Assembly. Counselor Vex, his expression grave, addressed the gathered representatives. "My fellow counselors, it is with both trepidation and resolve that I announce the outcome of our deliberations. By a slim margin, the Council has voted in favor of extending an olive branch to the humans, offering them the opportunity to join the Star Alliance as equal partners." The announcement was met with a smattering of murmurs and subdued reactions, but Vex raised a hand, silencing the chamber. "I know that many of you harbored deep reservations about this course of action, and I can assure you that your concerns have not fallen on deaf ears. The risks inherent in this decision are substantial, and we must proceed with the utmost caution and vigilance." Counselor Orcs, his features set in a deep frown, rose to his feet, his voice laced with barely concealed frustration. "Counselor Vex, you speak as if we have not already weighed the consequences of this reckless decision. These humans are a plague, a cancer that will spread and consume our very way of life if we allow them to join our ranks." The former military commander's gaze swept across the Assembly, his expression hardening. "Mark my words, this alliance will be our undoing. The peace and prosperity we have enjoyed for millennia will be shattered, and the blood of our people will be on the hands of those who voted in favor of this madness." Vex raised a placating hand, his voice calm but resolute. "I understand your concerns, Counselor Orcs, but I would remind you that the decision has been made. Now our task is to ensure that the integration of the humans into the Star Alliance is carried out with the utmost care and vigilance." The elder counselor turned to face the assembled delegates, his gaze sweeping across their faces. "To that end, I have proposed the creation of a dedicated diplomatic corps, tasked with overseeing the entire process. Their mission will be to establish secure channels of communication with the humans, to share our knowledge and resources in a controlled and measured manner, and to monitor their progress within the Alliance for any potential threats." Orcs scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "Diplomatic corps. Counselor Vex, you speak as if we should simply trust these savages and welcome them with open arms. Have you forgotten the horrors we have witnessed, the devastation they have wrought upon their own kind?" Vex held up a hand, silencing the former military commander. "I have not forgotten, Counselor Orcs, and neither have any of us. But I believe that with the proper safeguards and a steadfast commitment to our principles, we can work to channel the humans' martial spirit and technological prowess towards more constructive ends." Counselor Zora, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke, her voice measured and calm. "Counselor Orcs, I understand your trepidation, and it is not without merit. The humans' proclivity for violence is deeply troubling, and we would be foolish to ignore the very real threats they pose to the stability of the Star Alliance." The xenopsychologist's gaze hardened, and she continued, her tone resolute. "However, I believe that Counselor Vex's proposal to establish a diplomatic corps is a prudent and necessary step. If we are to integrate the humans into our civilization, We must do so with the utmost care and caution, ensuring that our values and principles remain intact." Zora paused, her eyes scanning the faces of the assembled delegates. "And should the humans prove unwilling or unable to adapt to our ways, then we must be prepared to take the necessary actions to protect the Star Alliance, even if it means severing ties with them entirely." The chamber fell silent, the weight of the decision they had made hanging heavily in the air. Vex nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "Then it is settled. The diplomatic corps will be assembled, and they will be tasked with facilitating the integration of the humans into the Star Alliance. We will share our knowledge, our resources, and our cultural norms, in the hopes of forging a lasting and mutually beneficial alliance." The elder counselor's gaze swept across the room, his voice tinged with a note of warning. "But make no mistake, my friends, if the humans prove to be an unacceptable risk to the stability and security of the Star Alliance, then we will not hesitate to take the necessary actions to ensure the protection of our civilization." As the counselors filed out of the chamber, the weight of their decision hung heavy in the air, a harbinger of the profound changes that were to come. For good or ill, the fate of the humans and the Star Alliance had been inextricably linked, and the path forward was shrouded in uncertainty. The arrival of the Star Alliance's diplomatic corps on the human homeworld was a momentous occasion, marking the beginning of a new era of cooperation and exchange between the two vastly different civilizations. Tasked with facilitating the integration of the humans into the galactic community, the diplomats set to work, their mission guided by a delicate balance of diplomacy and caution. At the forefront of the diplomatic efforts was Counselor Zora, the renowned synopsychologist, whose insights had played a pivotal role in the Star Alliance's decision to extend an olive branch to the humans. With a keen understanding of the cultural nuances that divided the two societies, Zora led the charge in establishing open lines of communication and fostering an environment of mutual trust and understanding. "The humans are a proud and fiercely independent people," Zora reported to the Alliance Council during one of the regular progress updates. "Their history is marked by conflict and struggle, and they view the prospect of integration with a degree of skepticism and trepidation." The counselor's brow furrowed as she continued. "However, they are also a remarkably resourceful and innovative species, driven by a thirst for knowledge and a determination to shape their own destiny. If we are to successfully integrate them into the Star Alliance, we must approach this endeavor with the utmost care and respect for their cultural identity." Counselor Orcs, his features set in a deep frown, spoke up, his voice laced with barely concealed contempt. "Respect their cultural identity. Counselor Zora, these humans have proven themselves to be nothing more than savages, consumed by their own base desires for violence and conquest. Do you truly believe that we can trust them with the secrets of our civilization?" Zora held up a placating hand, her expression calm but resolute. "I understand your concerns, Counselor Orcs, and they are not without merit. The humans' past actions have been deeply troubling, and we must remain vigilant in our efforts to safeguard the stability and security of the Star Alliance." The xenopsychologist's gaze hardened, and she continued, "However, I believe that by engaging with the humans in a spirit of cooperation and mutual understanding, we can channel their remarkable talents and capabilities towards more constructive ends. Their strategic acumen, their technological prowess, these are attributes that, if properly harnessed, could revolutionize our own approaches to defense, exploration, and even scientific discovery." Orcs scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "Harnessed? Counselor Zora, you speak as if we should simply trust these savages and welcome them into our fold with open arms. Have you forgotten the devastation they have wrought upon their own kind?" Counselor Vex, who had been silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke, his voice low and measured. "Counselor Orcs, I understand your concerns, but I must respectfully disagree with your assessment. The humans, for all their flaws, possess a remarkable level of resilience and adaptability, qualities that, if properly cultivated, could prove invaluable to the continued growth and prosperity of the Star Alliance. The elder counselor's gaze swept across the assembly, his expression solemn. We cannot ignore the risks inherent in this endeavor, but neither can we afford to squander the opportunities it presents. The humans have shown themselves to be a species driven by a thirst for knowledge and a desire to push the boundaries of their own capabilities. If we were to share our resources and expertise with them, the potential benefits to both our civilizations are truly staggering. Orcs opened his mouth to protest, but Vex raised a hand, silencing him. I know that many of you harbored deep reservations about this course of action, and I can assure you that your concerns have not fallen on deaf ears. But the decision has been made. And now it is our duty to ensure that the integration of the humans into the Star Alliance is carried out with the utmost care and diligence. The elder counselor's expression hardened, and he continued, his voice firm. To that end, I have tasked the diplomatic corps with establishing a comprehensive program of cultural exchange and knowledge sharing. The humans will be granted access to our resources and expertise, but only in a controlled and measured manner, with strict safeguards in place to protect the integrity of the Alliance. Zora nodded, her expression mirroring Vex's resolve. And should the humans prove unwilling or unable to adapt to our ways, then we must be prepared to take the necessary actions to ensure the continued prosperity and security of the Star Alliance. As the council members filed out of the chamber, the weight of the decision they had made hung heavy in the air. The integration of the humans into the galactic community was a monumental undertaking, fraught with both risks and opportunities, and the fate of the Star Alliance itself now rested upon the success of this endeavor. Yet, as the diplomats began their work, a growing sense of cautious optimism began to take hold. For in the humans, the Alliance saw the potential for a new era of discovery and innovation, one that could reshape the very fabric of their civilization and propel them towards a future of unprecedented progress and prosperity. Only time would tell if this fragile alliance would prove to be the Star Alliance's salvation or its downfall.